Hi Year 4, it's Mrs Reynolds. I am back to read you not one but two chapters today of our book, which is The Firework Maker's Daughter by Philip Pullman. And this book, of course, runs alongside our new project for this half term. So at the end of chapter 3, Chulak and Hamlet had been to the lake and they had seen the goddess. And as Chulak had gathered himself, because he was a little bit nervous to step forward and make his request, the local villagers and lots of people manhandled him and got him right out of the way, with the high priest from that area was very cross. It was sent him away and said if he comes back, kill him, and they tried to throw him out. So we agreed, didn't we, that it wasn't quite what Chulak had been hoping for. So, chapter 4. Over the noise of the shouts and the struggle there came a sound like a mighty trumpet, and everyone fell still in fear. Chulak was frightened as well, though he knew what it was, for when Hamlet trumpeted, it meant he had nearly lost his temper. But before anyone could move, the goddess herself spoke. Her voice was soft and low, like the murmur of waves on a beach at night. What is the cause of all this commotion? Stop fighting at once. It is good of you to protect me from embarrassment, High Priest, but I should like to hear from this young man and to see his friend, the elephant. Come down to the water, both of you. Chulak looked at Hamlet and saw that the great beast was embarrassed as well. Hamlet stepped through the crowd, being very careful not to tread on any toes, and knelt down next to Chulak on the sand. The slogans daubed on him were very clear in the moonlight. The goddess read them and asked Hamlet to turn around and show his other side. Eat at Rambashi's Jungle Grill. Chang loves lotus blossom. I thought I'd washed that one off, Chulak said. I think it's charming, said the goddess, but you mustn't do it any more. Your friend is too wise and too noble to be written on, and if he could speak, I'm sure you'd realise that yourself. And she looked at Chulak in such a way that he knew exactly what she meant, and he felt ashamed. However, she went on, I can see that your request is not a frivolous one. Tell me what you seek. Well, we've got a friend, Chulak said eagerly, and she wants to be a firework maker, you see, and she's done all the apprenticeship, but she wants to get some royal sulphur from Razvani, from the fire fiend, so as to qualify properly. So she's gone off by herself to Mount Merapi, only she didn't know about getting a flask of magic water for protection, and we don't want her to get hurt. So we've come to ask, please, as a great favour, if you could give us some, and then we'll chase after her and see if we can catch her up. The goddess nodded. Your friend has good friends, she said, but Mount Merapi is far away, and the journey is dangerous. You had better set off at once and take great care. And as if she had known what they wanted all the time, she held out a little gourd fastened with a silver clasp. Chulak took it and bowed again, and the orchestra began to play and the dancers to dance, and when people looked at the lake again, the goddess was gone, although no one had seen her vanish. Before they left, Chulak washed Hamlet clean in the lake. Some of the village children helped, but they didn't help for long, because soon there was something else for them to see. A great cloud of smoke and flames coming from the jungle grill. Oh dear, said Chulak. There goes Uncle Rambashi's latest plan, Hamlet. I could tell that cook was having trouble. I hope he's all right. They're all safe, said Hamlet, and the children are enjoying the fire. Squeals of delight and excitement were coming from the crowd as the roof fell in with a shower of sparks. Buckets of water were passed from the lake, and Chulak could hear Rambashi saying, What a spectacle! What a splendid sight! Do you know, my boys, that's given me my best idea yet. All we have to do... We haven't even had our meal, cried one of the waiters. Time to go, Hamlet, said Chulak, and they set off along the lake shore towards the mountains in the distance. By this time, Lila had come to the end of the jungle. Climbing all the time, she moved on as the trees thinned out and the path became a mere track and then vanished altogether. All the jungle sounds, the clicking, the buzzing of the insects, the cries of the birds and the monkeys, and the drip of the water off the leaves, the croaking of the little frogs, were behind her now. When she had heard them, she had enjoyed their company, but now there was nothing except the sound of her foot on the path and the occasional rumble from the mountain, which was so deep that she felt it through her feet as much as she heard it through her ears. When night fell, she lay down on the stony ground beside a rock and wrapped herself in her one blanket. The full moon shone right in her face and kept her awake, and she couldn't get comfortable because of the stones on the ground. Finally, she sat up in annoyance. But there was no one to share her annoyance with. She'd never felt so lonely. I wonder, she began to say, but she shook her head. She hadn't come on this journey in order to wonder how things were at home. It was the way things were at home that had made her come on this journey, after all. Well, if I can't sleep, I might as well keep walking, she said to herself. She folded her blanket away and retied her sarong and tightened her sandals, and she set off again. The ground became steeper and steeper. Soon she could no longer see the top of Mount Merapi, so she knew she must be climbing the side of it. There were no plants at all here, not even shrubs or grass, and just bare rocks and loose stones, and the ground was warm. "I'm close," she said to herself. "It can't be far now." But as she said that, she set her foot on a stone, and it rolled under her weight, and she fell, and a dozen other rocks rolled down with her. All the breath was knocked out of her, and she had none left to cry out as the rocks pummeled and battered her. The rocks bounded on down the mountain until finally they came to a rest a long way below. Lila sat up gingerly. That means carefully. "Ow," she said. "That was silly. I wasn't looking where I was putting my feet. I really must be more careful." And there she is, tumbling down the side of Mount Merapi. She got up and found that one of her sandals had come off and tumbled down the mountain with the stones. It was nowhere to be seen. Very delicately, she put her naked foot down, and she found the ground hot beneath it. Well, there's nothing she could do about that, and hadn't she come seeking fire? And hadn't she burned herself time and time again as an apprentice? And what did she need delicate feet for anyway? On she climbed higher and higher. Before long she came to a part of the slope where all the stones were loose, and where she slid back 2 steps for every 3 she took upwards. Her feet and legs were bruised and battered, and then she lost her other sandal, and she nearly cried out in despair, because there was no sign of the grotto, just an endless slope of hot, rough stones that tumbled and rolled underfoot. And her throat was parched, and her lungs were panting in the hot, thin air, and she fell to her knees and clung with trembling fingers as the stones began to roll under her again. She let go of her little bag of food and her blanket. They didn't matter anymore. The only thing that mattered now was climbing on. She dragged herself on bleeding knees up and up until every muscle hurt, until she had no breath left in her lungs, until she thought she was going to die. And still she went on. Then one stone, bigger than the rest, began to shift above her as the little stones beneath it tumbled down. It slid and rolled towards her, and she had no strength to move. But at the very last second it bounded over her and rolled on down the mountainside in a cloud of dust of pebbles. Where it had been, there was a great hole as tall as a house. The moonlight shone into it a little way, but the hole went deeper still, right into the heart of the mountain. A gust of sulphur-laden smoke came billowing out, and Lila knew she had found her goal. It was the grotto of the fire fiend. That's the end of chapter 4, but I'm going to read you chapter 5 as well. She pulled herself up with shaking arms and stepped inside. The floor was baking hot, and the air was hardly breathable. She walked on, deeper into the earth, deeper than the moonlight went, and heard nothing but silence, and saw nothing but dark rock. Harsh, barren walls rose to the left and the right, and she felt them with her bleeding hands. Then the tunnel opened out into a great cavern. She had never seen anything so gloomy and empty of life, and her heart sank, because she'd come all this way, and there was nothing there. She sank to the floor, and as if that were a signal, a little flame licked out of the rocky wall for an instant, and then it went out, and then another in a different place, then another. Then the earth shook and groaned, and with a harsh, grating sound, the rocky wall tore itself open, and suddenly the cavern was full of light. Lila sat up astonished as red fire and flame licked and crackled at the rocky roof. All of a sudden, the grotto was alive with movement, as 1,000 fire imps swarmed upwards to dash themselves against the rock and smash into 1,000 more. As a wide carpet of boiling lava spread from side to side, as the clang and clash of mighty hammers and anvils rang with the rhythm of a great fire dance. The cavern was full of light and noise. Thousands upon thousands of little fire spirits toiled and blazed and swung hammers and ran to and fro with handfuls of sparks and swarmed against the rocky wall till it melted and slid downwards. Then the greedy creatures plunged their red hands into it and lifted up the bubbling sulphur into their tiny mouths and ate until another mass of rock slid down and smothered them. And then into the heart of the light and the fire and the noise leapt Razvani himself, the great fire fiend whose body was a mass of flames and whose face was a mask of scorching light. Thousands of fire imps scattered as he landed, and even the blazing flames bowed to him, and so did Lila. In a voice like the roar of a forest fire, Razvani spoke. "By what right have you come to my grotto?" She swallowed hard. It was difficult to breathe because she seemed to be taking fire into her lungs as well as air. "I want to be a firework maker," she managed to say. He laughed a great laugh. "You? Never. And what do you want from me?" "Royal sulphur," she gasped. And with that, he slapped his sides harder and laughed, and a chorus of jeers and shrieks of merriment burst from all the fire imps. Royal sulphur? Did you hear that? Oh, that's good. That's funny. Well, speak, my girl. Have you the 3 gifts? Lila could only shrug and shake her head, because of course she doesn't know about the 3 gifts. I don't know what they are, she said. So what are you going to exchange for the royal sulphur? He roared. I don't know. You were going to give nothing in exchange. She had nothing to say. She bowed her head. Well, you've come this far, said the fire fiend, and there's no going back. Now you're here, you must walk in the flames like every other firework maker. I expect you've brought some magic water from my cousin, the goddess of the lake. You've brought nothing for me, but I don't suppose you've forgotten to take care of yourself. Better drink it quickly. I've got nothing, Lila gasped. I didn't know about the magic water or the 3 gifts. I just wanted to be a firework maker. I'll be a good one, Razvani. I invented self-igniting crackle dragons and the shimmering coins. I've learned everything my father could teach me. It's all I want, to be a firework maker like him. But Razvani merely laughed. Show her the ghosts, he cried, and he clapped his blazing hands. Instantly, a crack shivered its way down the rock wall, and out of the opening came a procession of ghosts, each attended by fire demons. The ghosts were so pale and transparent that Lila could hardly see them, but she could hear them wailing. Can you see those ghosts? Beware, look at me, I came without 3 gifts. Alas, take warning from me, I hadn't worked at the craft and I wasn't ready. Maiden, turn back, I was arrogant and headstrong. I didn't seek the water from the goddess and I perished in the flames. Wailing and weeping, the ghosts passed across the lake of fire and vanished into a crack in the opposite wall. That's what happens to those who don't come prepared, said Razvani. But now you must submit yourself as they did. Walk in my flames, Lila. You have come for the royal sulphur. Receive it from my hands. And he laughed louder and spun in a rapid dance, stamping his feet in a wide circle and causing a ring of fire to blaze up around him. Through the lashing red and yellow and orange, his face seemed to waver and flicker, but his voice rang out clearly over the roar and the crackle. You want to be a firework maker? Walk into my flames. Your father did in his time, and so did every artist in fire. This is what you've come for. What are you waiting for? She was terribly afraid, but she knew that she must do it. She would rather be a ghost than go back empty-handed and fail at the one thing she'd ever wanted. So she took 1 step forward, and then another, and her poor feet burned and blistered so that she cried out loud. Then she took another step, and when she knew she could bear it no longer, she heard a great sound behind her, like a mighty trumpet, and through the blaze a voice was shouting, Lila, take the water, take it, take it. And there was a small figure beside her, thrusting something into her hands, a gourd, a drinking gourd with a clasp that she tore off before lifting it to her parched lips and drinking deep. All at once, a marvellous coolness spread through her body and down to the tips of her toes. The pain vanished, and the dryness in her throat and lungs was soothed and moistened. At the entrance to the cave behind her, she could see Chulak shrinking back, covering his face from the heat, and she could see Hamlet fanning him with his ears. But she was in the heart of the fire, facing Razvani once again, and the flames were harmless now. They played like fountains of light. They rushed up her legs and arms and across her face like darting birds, and she felt light and joyful as if she were a flame herself, dancing with pure energy and joy. So you have done it, Razvani said to her. Welcome to the flames, Lila. And the royal sulphur, she said. Ah, when you reach the heart of the fire, all your illusions vanish. Didn't your father tell you that? Illusions? I don't understand. The royal sulphur doesn't exist, Lila. There is no such thing. Then how can I be a firework maker? I thought every firework maker needed some royal sulphur to become a true artist. Illusions, Lila. Fire burns away all our illusions. The world itself is an illusion. Everything that exists flickers like a flame for a moment and then vanishes. The only thing that lasts is change itself. There is no royal sulphur, an illusion. Everything outside the fire is an illusion. But the 3 gifts, I don't understand. What are the 3 gifts, Razvani? Whatever they are, you must have brought them to me, he said. And that was the last thing she heard from him. For as he said it, he dwindled away like the lake of fire and the lake of fire darkened and became red rock, and then just rock, and all the myriad fire imps became little feeble sparks that floated aimlessly for a second and sank and went out once again. The grotto was bare. Lila turned away from where the fire had been. She was dazed and disappointed, calm, curious, pleased and puzzled. In fact, she didn't know what she felt or who she was for a moment, But then she saw Chulak and she ran to him. Chulak, you saved my life and you're hurt, you're burned. Let me help you. He was shaking his head and tugging at her hand. Don't waste any time, he said. We've got to hurry. Tell her as we go, Hamlet. They stumbled out of the grotto into the pale light of dawn and Hamlet said, I'm sorry, Lila. I heard the birds talking at the foot of the mountain and they said, look, the white elephant. That's the very one who escaped from the city. And I asked the bird what he knew and he said, the firework maker helped you escape. Someone saw it and told the king. And now Lalchand has been arrested and he's going to be executed. Then he flew away to tell the other birds. Lila, we've got to go back as fast as we can. Don't waste time blaming anyone. Get on my back and hold tight. So in a torment of fear that put Razvani and the royal sulphur and the 3 gifts completely out of her mind, Lila clambered up next to Chulak on the elephant's back and held on tight as Hamlet began to slither down the mountain in the light of the dawn. So that was chapter 4 and 5. It's not as nice weather now, but I hope you're still having a nice time and doing nice things. I will be back with chapter 6 and 7 very soon. Bye.